Hello and welcome to part two of installing Geonode in Ubuntu 20. So we will proceed from where we left at. So we are now installing the PostGIS database. So one thing to note is that we need to have, of course, installed the previous the dependencies and all those successfully, which we did in the previous video. So now we are going to proceed with the installation and configuration of the database system. So let's begin with this first command. So there's one thing you'll notice. Since I'm using a 64-bit machine, I may get some warning or some error if I paste this command there for the Postgres repo without the indicator for the 64-bit. So in this case, since I'm using a 64-bit machine, I'm going to add something here after the DEB, the Debian, the DEB standing for Debian. And I'll put it in these square brackets and add a space. So inside it, I'll add ARCH for architecture is equals to AMD 64. So at times I even using, if you look at my tutorial for QGIS, there's somewhere where when I was adding the repo, I had to put these AMD64 because if I do not, it's going to add or bring some issues because it's going to say that I need to specify the architecture. So let me just do it as it is in the documentation to show you. So I'll just input my password and then I'm going to add the key. So yeah, this is adding the key. And then I'll just run my update and upgrade. So we are installing PostgreSQL 13. Yeah, so you'll notice that there's something that it has shown me here. Let's just give it some time to complete. But you'll notice as it's completing, you'll notice that there's something here that we have skipping acquire of this in release doesn't support architecture. So it's telling us that it does not support 32-bit. This is a 32-bit architecture. So you can just research on 32 versus 64-bit architecture in your from the internet to understand this. So this is an indicator for the 32-bit. So it states that it only supports 64-bit architecture. So at times you may have to state that add the bracket AMD architecture AMD is equals 64 as I had shown. But nevertheless, I believe that it has installed. And this goes to some other packages as well or installations. You may find that you may have to state the particular architecture that you're installing for. So we will start the the Postgres service. So you can use this also to, let's actually check the status first using the status command, and it's actually running. So we don't need, but if it's not running, I'll know that it's running because we have this green dot here and it states that it is active. So we'll just proceed with creating a database user called Geonode. So it will ask for the password. So I'll just stick to the documentation and use it as Geonode. However, if you're installing in your particular organization or for a particular user, you may need to, of course, add probably a different user or a different password. Yeah, so this, of course, states that if as I've said, if you're running in a production environment, you should not use that password because it's weak, same as the user. So we'll create two databases. One is Geonode and Geonode data. So these kind of stores the data, the metadata, user information, and all that. And the Geonode data stores the data and I think references to data, the GIS data and the actual data inside the database. So I'll just highlight all these commands and I'll explain. The first one creates an extension called PostGIS. The second command grants permissions to public, and this is because we may need to write to these files or access those files, such as the geometry columns, spatial reference systems for projections and all that. So we grant them to public so that they can be used, of course, in the Geonode application. So we'll also do the same for the Geonode data. And now, one thing that you may notice is that we may need to change the user access policies. And this one is done by editing this file, the PGHBA configuration. Yeah, so this is how it looks like. So I'm going to navigate to the first command here for local, for the Unix domain socket. So I'll activate the insert. And I will remove these and add trust, as it has been stated here, or shown in the documentation. So the only two things we are editing are these, and I believe this, the second one. So I'll change this from peer to MD5. So I will just amend or change. So after I've changed, you may need to restart. If you change that file, configuration file, you may need to restart the PostgreSQL service. And now you can test the PostgreSQL by logging into Geonode. So we have successfully logged into Geonode. Uh, what is it called? The Geonode database. So I'll just quit by typing a /q. And then I'll do the same. So for this one, as the documentation states, it should ask us for a password. And I had the password. So we have logged in. So the password here, I use the one that is in the documentation, which is Geonode. However, you should not use it in a production environment. We'll do the same for Geonode data. And we'll quit. And then we do the same. For this user, it asks us for a password. So yeah, so the next step will be installing GeoServer. And in this step, we have the Apache Tomcat 8 servlet. And that's where you are installing Java. So it states that you can refer to Tomcat 9, which requires Java 8. And you remember we have already installed the Java 8. If you're not sure, you can just confirm Java version. Sure, I think it has single one, yeah, single the Java version, this command, and it shows us that we are using the Java 8. Now the next step will be adding a user, Tomcat, and the directory is points to this, and it's a user. It's an unlogin user, so we are not going to see the login for the user here because they're using the bash. So we now go to the official Tomcat website. It will be a next step to check the latest Tomcat, but we have been advised not to use Tomcat 10, which I believe is the latest at this time. So I'll just grab the version, the latest version for Tomcat 9. So I'm not going to use Tomcat 10, I'm going to use Tomcat 9. So this is what I want. I just want the version. So I've copied it, and if you look at this command, we have version is equals to the version number. So I'll just type it in. Version is equals to the version number, and I'll add a semicolon so that I can also add this following command. So you notice that it has version. So this variable version is the version number. Yes, and it has started downloading the Tomcat. So we are going to let's give it some time to complete to download. Once it has completed, we are going to create a directory. I believe the directory already exists, but you can just try and see it already exists. So we are going to extract using the tar, because it is, if you look at this extension, it is a tar.gzip archive. So we are going to extract it using the sudo command, sudo tar, and the xf command, and the file, of course. So I'm just going to highlight this, and I'll just explain something. The -c switch, it's for the output directory. Where are we extracting it to? So it's the output, and then the output folder. Then we will remove that file, the downloaded file, after we have extracted it, because we no longer need it. So it has extracted quite fast. So we also have, we'll create a folder to allow the update for Tomcat if we update it in future. And now we'll change the ownership of the Tomcat files back. It should be to Tomcat, and Tomcat group, our users, and the www data. And remember, we have access to his user has access, or is part of the www data group. So we'll make the shell script inside the binary directory executable by using this command called chmod, changing the mode, +x standing for execute. So then we are going to check the Java location by using this, or state the Java point Java location. So if we echo the Java home, this is what we have. We have the path to the JDK. So that is home to our Java. So we are going to copy or create what you call a symbolic link that points to the Java 8 location. And then we are going to now create a service file for the Tomcat. And I'm going to activate the insert mode. And what I'm going to do at this point, I'm just going to highlight all this, as it is in the documentation, and paste it. And one thing, I'll just make a quick look. So you see Java home points to the created the symbolic link that we have created pointing to the JRE. And then we have the Java options. For those who have deployed various systems running on Java, they may be familiar with these commands like Java home, Java opt. And then we have the Catalina home, or the Catalina base folder, which is in OPT Tomcat latest. We have the process ID. So the process ID file will be created in this temporary folder inside the Tomcat. And then we have this very important item here, which is Catalina ops. So in this case, I am running on an 8 GB machine. So I'm going to at least give it, let me give it something like 4 GB, which is 4096 MB. And then I'll also add the same 4096 MB. So what I'm doing is that I'm giving it the garbage. I think it's about garbage collection and optimization. So in this case, why I'm giving it similar values, it's because I don't want it to take a long time in starting up. And then I also have the memory. So normally it usually takes a quarter of the memory. So ideally it should have been 2 GB. But since I'm not running many applications, I'm only running Postgres, then I'm going to give it at least half of the memory. So you can read more about optimization of Java or Tomcat for details. So I'll just add or commit the changes. So I'll clear. And now I can reload the daemon. And then after I reload it, I can just try and start Tomcat 9. So if I go to my browser and use localhost port 8080, which is the default port that runs Tomcat, it should display the Tomcat homepage. So yeah, so this successfully shows us that we have successfully installed the Tomcat. And then we are going to, of course, check the status. If you want to know whether it's running or not, you can use status, and then we can enable. When you enable a service, it means that it's going to run on startup. When you reboot this machine, it's still going to be, it's startup on reboot. So I'll skip this point, but you can use this. This one is used to show the ports that are running, and you'll notice that you will see there should be some 8080 and 5432. This is for PostgreSQL. and this is for Tomcat server. So I'm just going to clear. So this one says that if the ss command cannot be found, you can use this IP route, but we don't need because we have already run it and it's showing something. So if you are running on a, let's say, some remote server, you maybe should allow this through the firewall. So UFW stands for Ubuntu Firewall. So we have allowed the TCP port, TCP protocol for port 88. And so we can alternatively, we can also create a service using this command, but we will just skip that because we have already done it. So we are now going to install GeoServer on Tomcat 9. And the first step, we are going to create a directory called OPT, data inside the OPT folder. We are going to change the username. We have looked at this command, the change ownership and the change mode. We have talked about it rather. And then we are going to make another directory for logs. And then we're also going to change ownerships and change the mode. So I've just added all the commands. And then we are going to download and extract the GeoServer data directory. So it has downloaded and it is in a zip file. And you'll notice this stands for the GeoServer version, which is 2.19. So we're going to unzip the data into OPT data folder that we created. I'm going to clear that. Now the next step will include moving the data subdirectory to the GeoServer data and changing the ownership and changing the mode, the read-write mode and all that. So we are going to, I'm just going to highlight. For these ones, we are doing it for the logs and the GeoWeb cache for GeoServer. So I'm going to clear. The next step will include downloading and installing the GeoServer. So we'll download GeoServer using the wget command. Yeah, so it is the particular installer that we are downloading. If you look at the GeoServer website or download installers, you notice that we have various installers, the binary installer, and I think the Web Archive installer. So in this case, we are using the Web Archive. WAR stands for Web Archive. And for those who have used many other applications that are run on the Tomcat servlet engine, will notice they may be familiar with the WAR, the Web Archive file. So it has completed downloading. We will move these Web Archive into the Tomcat Web Apps. The next step will be configuring the Java options parameters to run the Tomcat servlet container. This is what we are talking about: heap memory and garbage collector. So we're just going to do some copying and pasting here. Then we're going to export once again the location to the Java home variable and test. And then we are going to, at least since we are certain now, we can append it in this file, the Tomcat set environment, using the sed command. And then for the four of these lines, I'm just going to copy and paste them as they are. So what we are doing, basically, we are adding this like time zone to this file, appending GeoServer data directory, the GeoFen directory to this particular file, and we are going to look at it. So now the last command is the one that I wanted to do it separately because it's quite a long command. It has variables or the properties for running the Java, like this parallel threading and all that, and how many the threads that it's going to be using. File encoding, time zone, user time zone, which is equals to the current time zone for the machine, and the other items. So what I'm interested in is these two commands, the heap memory command. You remember we adjusted it in the Tomcat server settings, whereby we added the XMS to 4096 for 4 GB and the upper limit for the heap memory to 4096 as well. So I'm going to change that, the first one rather, to 4096. 4096. So you have to be certain the amount of RAM that you want to give it to give or to GeoServer. Ideally, in most cases, what happens is that they add these to the they give at least, like now I have 8 GB, so I'll give the Tomcat 6 GB, and then 2 GB remains for the Geonode, now the front end and the others. So I'll just clear, and I'm going to print out this. Yeah, permission is denied. So I'm going to log in as root using sudo su, and I'm going to try this. So to cut command output, so I'm seeing the output of the items that I've already, the lines that I've already added. So I'll just clear and exit from root user and go back to my user. So yeah, it states that if you try and look at that file, you're going to see the same. So let's look at, in order to make changes effective, you need to restart the servlet container. So we are going to restart the servlet container. Yeah, this is because I did not create this file in the second alternative. So I'm just going to basically use the copy, the other alternative command, which is sudo service tomcat 9 restart. Sorry, restart. We're also going to check the log files using the tail command that monitors the GeoServer log. It says that it cannot open OPT GeoServer log for reading, but I believe it should be coming up soon. Yeah, here it is. So it has appeared for a new file. So it may take some few moments to start because of it's, I believe it's extracting GeoServer, the web archive file that we copied. So yeah, so this is the logs. You can see the log. We have some warnings that I'm not really worried much about. But what should be worried about is if we encounter an error. So I believe we should be able to also see the GeoServer. So let's give it some few moments. So the logs, as you can see, should look like this. However, of course, mine has quite a number of warnings. And it also states that GeoServer should be up and running in this URL, which is the URL that we have also opened here. So this is how it looks like. Let me expand the window. So this GeoServer, you'll notice that it has some capabilities or some additions that are not there in the default GeoServer. It is actually a snapshot of version 2.19, and it has this auth. Of course, when I click it, it won't show anything, but it authenticates with Geonode. That is one thing that can be noted. And then, so we've been able to install the GeoServer, and we can check the output for the log file using this. So we'll just use the less command and see if we have any errors, which I highly doubt. So I'm going to click Control C and clear the terminal, and I'm going to check. So we only have info. I do not see any errors so far. So far, so good. Of course, we have some warnings, but we don't have any errors. So this brings us to the end of the second part of this tutorial for installing Geonode. And we have been able to install GeoServer. We have been able to install and deploy Tomcat and optimize it and configure them. So the next step will be installing the web server so that we can kickstart our Geonode and see how it looks like. Share, and also please subscribe to my channel for more content. And don't forget to click the bell icon for the notification whenever I release a new video, new content. So let's meet in the third and I believe the final step for installing or deploying Geonode in Ubuntu 20.04 long-term release.